Today, we have Sean Palmer, Business Advisor for Washington State Small Business Development Center. Sean, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Christina. I appreciate you. All right, let's get this set up. All right, good morning, everybody. As Christina mentioned, yes, we do offer no-cost confidential business advising in partnership and funded by the Small Business Administration, the WSBDC, the Washington Small Business Development Center. We provide this service because the SBA knows and we know that the strength of our community is rooted in the success of small business. So if you have questions, please, I invite you to reach out and I will happily engage with you. Let's jump into things. Today's webinar is on workplace dynamics and organizational culture. So culture is the customs, achievements, values, norms, and general beliefs of a certain group of individuals. Peter Drucker had said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. In other words, you can have a great product, a great service, a great business model, but having a Ferrari on a gravel road doesn't do you a lick of good. You've got to be able to have the organizational culture and the infrastructure, which is everything from communication and how you treat your employees, so that that can permeate and filter down so that you can provide great customer service. If you want to provide great customer service, you've got to be able to provide great employee service. So Abraham Lincoln had once said, "Give me 9 seconds to chop down a tree and I'll spend the first 6 sharpening the axe." And yes, I changed the numbers to reflect a more modern era. The ratios are exactly the same. It used to be 6 hours and 4 hours. And what Abraham Lincoln was saying was, if something is worth doing, I'm going to put the prep time in to make sure that I can be as successful as possible. So we're going to do that today. We're going to sharpen our collective axes. We're going to think of 4 adults that we know well, current in our lives, not an old college or war buddy, who have an impact on our lives or our business. And I'm going to describe for you 4 distinct personalities, and I want you to think of who fits this personality description. There is great knowledge and great engagement that you can learn about as a parent about how to engage with your children. As a parent, I have actually employed this. However, kids are still growing into their personalities. So let's not talk about our middle schooler or even our high school student that we have at home. Let's keep this to mature adults, again, that have an impact on our lives and business. So personality type number 1. They're seen as even-tempered, objective, and diplomatic. They seek contentment. Reason and clarity are their natural talents. They can sometimes be seen as reluctant or indifferent, and they're motivated by peace or harmony. If you have ever seen a man and wife in the freezer section at the grocery store, and one says, "What kind of ice cream do you want?" And the other one says, "I don't know, whatever kind you want." And he goes back and the other one says, "Well, it doesn't matter to me, just pick what you want." And they go at it for 10 minutes and never actually decide. These are 2 white personalities. It's not that they don't care, they just want the other person to get what they want. So I want you to take just a brief moment and think about who in your life might be a white personality. Got that written down? All right, moving on to the next one. This person is charismatic, spontaneous, sociable. They seek adventure. They're naturally optimistic and enthusiastic, can sometimes be seen as non-committal, and they're motivated by fun. This is our yellow personality. I want to do everything. Everything is a fantastic idea, but they get spread so thin that they don't actually follow through on most of the things that they set out to do. This is your natural cheerleader. This is the PTSA mom or dad who's just a natural recruiter. This is your outgoing salesperson. This is your people-oriented. They're an extrovert. They want to be surrounded by people. This is our yellow personality. So I want you to think for a moment about who in your life matches this personality type. Think about who that person is. Got it? All right, here we go. On to number 3. This person is detail conscious, caring, thoughtful. They seek selflessness, not only in themselves, but also in others. They are drawn to quality, service of others. They're sometimes seen as a little bit self-righteous, that consummate Boy Scout or Girl Scout. They're motivated by relationships. This is your blue personality. If you've ever had a coworker be guilty of TMI, this is probably a blue personality. This is someone who likes to share because they share of themselves because they want you to share of yourself so that they can get to know you better. They're motivated by deep relationships. This blue personality, think for a brief moment about who in your life matches this personality type. And then we'll move on to our 4th and final set of characteristics. This person is assertive, articulate, motivated by action. They seek challenges, natural leaders, sometimes seen as impatient or abrasive, and they're motivated by power or approval. These are your red personalities. A red personality has natural leadership and vision, outgoing, motivated by challenge, but all that detail, logic, what motivates them can sometimes be seen as a little bit overbearing. So take that with a grain of salt, but consider who your red personality, colleague, friend, or coworker might be. Jot that person's name down. And now let's get into how we actually talk with and engage with these people differently based on their personality types and, more importantly, their core motivators. So this is taken from Dr. Taylor Hartman's Color Code. And Dr. Hartman does a fantastic job of boiling down our core motivators into 4 distinct personalities. Now, you may have taken other personality assessments. In Myers-Briggs, I'm an ENTJ. Now, I know a little bit about ENTJs. I don't really know how one ENTJ motivates or leads or works with another ENTJ, and I have 0 idea how they work with the other 15 personality types. So that's what I really like about the color code. And I've done a deep dive and gotten into the leadership and the business side of relationships and how we can use this in the workplace. So when we are giving praise, if you are speaking with all of your employees the exact same way, some of your messaging is being lost because you're not touching on the key motivators of these 4 distinct personality types. So you're yellow. They want to look good socially. They want to be liked. They want approval, and they want approval from a large group of people. The delivery should be energetic. Now, we're going to talk about how we're going to praise the exact same thing, but to 4 different personality types. So from the opposite side of the conference room or the sales floor, and at volume, because the yellow is going to key in on the energy level. Scarlet, awesome work with that client. It doesn't have to be specific. Other personality types are going to key in on, okay, what are you praising me for? What can I continue to do right? What can I improve on? But the yellow just wants that general high energy level, volume in front of other people level of praise. Taking them off to the side and be like, hey, and then whispering to them, you did a really good job. That does nothing for a yellow personality. Now your blues, remember, they're motivated by relationships. So this should be delivered with some level of sincerity with a link to how they have affected other people. So one-on-one or in a group setting, focus on the impact to others. Rob, your extra efforts with that client really lighten the load on accounting and marketing. We appreciate your commitment level. This is a we statement. Other personality types, you're going to see I statements. And it says accompanied by an appropriate level of contact. Blues are huggers. Remember, they're motivated by relationships. So based on whoever's delivering it, their personality type, the person receiving, and of course, your workplace culture, some level of physical contact. Blues are huggers. They're probably going to appreciate that, but keep it appropriate. All right, reds, they want to look good academically. They want to be right. They want to be respected. So this delivery should be articulate. Again, one-on-one or a group, you want to focus on outcomes, focus on results. Bree, excellent job with that client. You're at 110% of projection. You're ahead of your Q2 goals. And I especially liked your new client engagement idea. Accompanied with eye contact and some personal gesture. It could be a handshake, could be a smile and a nod. But just like the game of horse, remember at the end you have to prove it. The red is looking for the exact same thing. Their circle is small, unlike a yellow. You might have a red where they've got 4 important people in their life, and outside of approval from those 4 people, their spouse, their grandmother, their closest childhood friend, and their boss 3 levels up in the chain of command, not the direct supervisor. Those are the 4 people they're looking for approval from. Everyone else, no offense, can pound sand. So what you want to do with the red is make sure that you're, yep, this is directed at you, specific for you, and you want to give them that handshake or that nod of approval. And then finally, your whites. Remember the couple in the ice cream aisle. They want to feel good on the inside, move at their own pace, be respected, and they like their bubble. And they like you, but they like you best outside of their bubble. So you want to take a little bit of an indirect approach where a red wants hips square, right on, eye contact, and a firm handshake. A white you're going to approach from the side. It's going to be a little bit quieter, a little bit less intrusive. Ask for their attention. Still articulate, Chris, your results with that client. From navigating their questions to closing the sale, expertly done. I appreciate what you're doing for us. They've got the logic of a red without the need for specifics. We got into numbers and results with the red. This can be a little bit more overarching, a little bit more general, but again, it's an I statement, and then be done. They're processors. Let them process. You don't need to linger. Offer the praise, maybe a handshake, eye contact, and then let them process and get on with their next tasks. We are going to have time permitting, and I know that we started late, but we're going to have at least an abbreviated Q&A session when we're done. So please think about questions you have as we work through these different elements of today's webinar. Jot them down. You can use the chat. We're going to have somebody facilitating that. And all the questions that we have time for, I will be sure to address once we are wrapped up here this morning. Let's move on to teamwork, because we can't have a workplace culture without some level of teamwork. But let's look at what makes up effective teamwork. We're going to look at the 5 progressive elements of putting great team chemistry and great team results together. And the first is our objective structure. And we're going to learn that what we've thought in the past as this is our benchmark, we've had the wrong benchmark. So previously we've looked at, let's just have common goals, everybody working toward the same thing. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, we have segmented tasks. That is, you can have 9 people show up to play baseball, but if you've got 9 shortstops, that's not a team. What we really want is a unifying mission. That is everyone working toward the same thing and not each person just kind of sitting off in their own cubicle, not knowing how their work impacts the greater good and the overall mission of the organization. So let's look at group skill set. We've got non-specific training. And as a military veteran, I went through tons of training every year. The cybersecurity, trafficking in persons, alcohol awareness, all sorts of things not specific to my skill set, but it was generalized training. It was non-specific. Now we can have an untrained workforce, but what we really want are those complementary skill sets. If 4 drummers show up, it might be a fun and loud jam session, but it's not a band. So you want to seek out those complementary skill sets, people with different specific skill sets that come together for, as we covered in number 1, the overall mission of the organization. Trust. Now, as we work through these, you're going to see that very few of these elements have anything to do with the individuals on your team, but have a lot more to do with the culture that the leader sets for the team and for the organization. Now, that middle of the road objective is indifference. Well, I don't distrust my supervisor, but that is hardly enough. I've seen distrust in the workplace, and it is absolutely cancerous. What we want to have is modeled trust. That is, those in charge, those that are looked up to, either by role or position or just because they've been around the longest. We want to have those people model what you want everyone else to behave like. So we don't want to have the CEO say, hey, we're going to do this, and then they go and get in trouble for not being honest and not having integrity and not being accountable. We want our leaders to model the behavior they want from everybody else. Relationships. Compass knowledge is what I refer to as knowing who you report to, that's up, knowing who reports to you from underneath, and then who your lateral equivalents are. Now, silence or discontent and not having relationships and not knowing who you report to can be very destructive. But the mere knowledge of who is in that compass knowledge is not enough. And we do want to build some level of camaraderie. Happy hour exists for a reason. And I can't emphasize enough the value of beginning to know your coworkers outside of work. It can actually emphasize and build those workplace relationships by knowing a little bit more about the people who are on your team and how you can connect with them. Connect with them as a veteran, connect with them as a fellow animal lover, connect with them as a fellow parent. And then you get deep into things, struggles they're going through and how you might be able to work with them better and demonstrate some empathy, but having that bona fide camaraderie and knowing who that you work with outside of work and building those relationships does emphasize and bolster those workplace relationships. All right, lastly, communication. Reciprocal or transactional communication is if you email me, I'll reply. Now, what we don't want to have are active barriers. And I have been to businesses where I have watched supervisors create a barrier and remove means of communication from either a lower supervisor or one of the team members on the floor. What we want to have is proactive communication. That is, I've got some information and I think this person can benefit from it, so I'm going to share it. Now, there's a difference between proactive communication and simply reply all. That's an entirely different webinar. But we want to have a culture where sharing information is emphasized and reinforced. Now, when our baseline is that common goals, non-specific training, and kind of that middle of the road area, instead of working toward each of these higher level elements of teamwork, when we don't have the bar set at the right place, we think we're doing better than we are. So a typical organization that I will observe, they're working toward a unifying mission. They've got complementary skill sets. So in one of these 5 areas, they are outperforming. And we're kind of middle of the road on 2 other things, but we really have some work to do when it comes to communication. Wherever the green dot, wherever the yellow dot, wherever the red dot falls, this is where a typical team currently operates. When we have that middle of the road expectation, rather than have an expectation of where that yellow line is, that is working toward each of these top tier levels of teamwork. then our average score actually comes down to where this orange line is, and that is a team that is underperforming. Now, consider a band. Whoever your favorite musical group is, take one band member away. The sound is not nearly the same. It's not nearly as effective. So if you've got a 4-person musical ensemble, whoever it is, you take one person away, you're not operating at 75%. You're actually operating somewhere under 50%, because there's no way that the other 3 band members can replace that specific skill set of the person removed from the team. And your team, your organization works much the same way. If we're missing one of these elements of teamwork, we're not missing 1/5. We're not still at 80%, which is passing. We are actually underperforming, and that is showing up in your results. Another way to look at that is you can improve your team's output simply by addressing which of these 5 elements needs the most work. Again, we have time for Q&A, so please be thinking of questions that you would like answered, and we'll be sure that we get to as many as we possibly can today. Let's wrap with the fallacy of the open door policy. And I've had supervisors and leaders do this, and I'm sure you have too. A new leader comes into an organization, or the tenured leader says, hey, we're going to set a new culture starting today. Open door. If you need anything, my door is open to you. And that sounds great. But think about physically and literally the layout of the space where you work and barriers that exist between you, the worker, and that open door. It could be distance. It could be time. It could be work hours. Now think about barriers that exist as we continue to work in this hybrid and remote model of time zones and connectivity and availability. And literally what the supervisor has said with the absolute best of intentions is that if you need anything, my door's open, but you have to come find me. Where really what the leader should endeavor to do is go and be seen and be experienced and literally and figuratively walk amongst his or her people so that he or she can learn more about what's happening within their own organization. So yes, keep that door open, but leaders, we must walk through it and go and talk with and walk with and experience with the people who are part of our team. Because as you recall from those 4 personality types, some are more or less likely to walk through that door no matter how much help they might need. The reds are probably going to be some of the first through, with the blues right behind. Your white personality types who hold a host of knowledge and ideas and skill sets that are vital to your organization's success, they're going to be the least likely to walk through that door. So again, while pitched with the absolute best of intentions, leaders, we've got to keep that door open, but we have to walk through it ourselves. All right, as we wrap today, not only do I want to extend my appreciation to One Redfin CEO Christina Hudson, but team members that you probably didn't get a chance to interact with yet, Kathleen, Sarah, Samantha, and Margot. From the marketing to the tech support and making this all work, ladies, I appreciate you.
And we appreciate you very much, Sean. So I think we're at the Q&A time. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we're on a different platform than we normally are. And so as a reminder, or if you're not familiar with Teams, there is on the screen, there's a reaction area of the toolbar. When you click on that, you can raise your hand. I know we have somebody on the phone as well. So if you're on the phone and have a question, feel free to unmute yourself and go ahead and ask the question. So I have a couple to kick us off while everybody's thinking of their questions. The first question is, how do you correct an employee based on these same personality types?
Excellent question. And it's probably a little bit more fun, and it's probably a little bit easier to talk about how you share good news or share praise with your employees. And then sometimes, yeah, some corrective action needs to be taken, but we want to employ exactly what we learned with giving praise to understand the core motivators and how messages should be delivered to different personality types. So with the yellow, with a corrective action, you still want to keep it relatively positive and at least a little bit energetic. Hey, that safety thing we ran into yesterday, we got to talk about that, right? So you just want to keep the energy level high and somewhat positive while being able to say, all right, look, we need to cover this. You know this? Okay, come on, let's talk about it. Let's see how we can correct this. And then ultimately with everybody, you want to get their buy-in into whatever the corrective action is. With your blue, again, you want to emphasize how it impacted other people. Hey, when we didn't adhere to those ocean and safety standards yesterday, you put some other people at risk, not only yourself, but you also affected other people. And for a blue, that's going to hit home. Oh my gosh, what I did had an impact on other people. Your whites and your reds, they're going to look for, hey, the specifics, the logic behind it. This is what the standard is. We didn't reach it. The white has to be a little bit more subdued of a delivery. The reds, you can come right out and say, hey, you messed up, right? We're going to fix this. This is why. Okay, fantastic. Ready, break. So again, it's about energy level, it's about impact to other people, and it's about how direct or indirect you have to make the delivery and the connection. But we can take the exact same premise when it comes to giving praise and also learn how to give corrective action as well. So great question to whomever asked that.
Thank you very much. And a reminder, if you have a question, you can raise your hand. If you're having any problems finding that reaction button, there's also a chat feature. You can go ahead and ask your question there as well. All right, we have another one here. It says, how can I use this information when hiring?
Oh, awesome question. And great when you know that your company, your organization needs to go through some growth and you want to bring the right people in. When there's a single person, and for small businesses, it's usually a single person. We don't have the Microsoft opportunity of sending people through 5 rounds of interviews where you talk with team members and you talk with the first 2 layers of supervisors, which I think is fantastic because it gets different eyes, different lenses, different personalities on the same candidate, and it really helps create organizational fit, not just plugging in someone based on experience and skill set. So when one person is doing the interviewing, I encourage you to try and identify what that other person's personality type is. And what we tend to lean toward is we want like people. It's just that village mentality, which I totally understand. It is ingrained in us as human beings, but we tend to hire like people. It's like, oh, I can totally get along with this person. What I really challenge you to do is look at, okay, what does the organization need? A good leader knows that they infuse into their organization whatever is lacking. If the organization is rigid, we don't have to apply more rules. We have to maybe apply some energy. If it's great camaraderie and a great energy level, then what maybe we need to apply is some direction and training. So what does your organization need? Does it need that outgoing cheerleader? Hey guys, we can do this. Even at the 11th hours, we're coming up on a pressing deadline, and seek that person, because we don't want an organization full of reds. And when I first started learning about this, I would have thought, hey, I want a team full of reds and we're going to go out there and kill it. But I'm telling you what happens. You get these feuding personalities are like, let's do it this way. No, let's do it this way. And one of 2 things is going to happen. You're going to get this awesome upward spiral of productive competition, or you're going to get just absolute friction. When you have a team of reds, and I've seen this play out, and I teach this exact thing when it comes to team dynamics, and conflict resolution. A leader who's got two warring reds, they're either co-chairing a committee for the PTSA or they're leading this new project. What the leader does is, shoot, I've got my two strongest personalities going at it. I better take my next strongest personality and try and wedge that between them. Well, a red is logic based. So what the third red is going to do, they're going to take sides. They're going to decide who's right, which may or may not be accurate. And then they're going to take sides. And now it's 2-on-1. So this is where that white personality comes in. They're a diplomat. They're that peacekeeper. And they're going to say, hey, I want you to be the best red you can be, but you do it over here in a neutral corner. And I want you to be the best red you can be, but you do it over here. So interjecting that peace-seeking white, who everybody gets along with the most because they're the least abrasive and the easiest to get along with, this is where that white personality is extremely valuable. So one, assess what your organization needs. And then two, look at identifying who it is that you're interviewing, more than what skill sets are bullet pointed out on their resume and what might really be the best for your organization. We can teach skills. It is much harder to teach organizational fit. So great question. I appreciate it.
Oh, that's a great answer. Thank you. All right, we have another question. This question asks, I have no employees currently. How else can this information apply to my business?
Do you have any other stakeholders? Do you have customers? I would imagine that all of us have customers, and you may or may not have another key employee or a financial partner or vendors or suppliers. But especially when it comes to customers, and I come from a sales background. I cut my teeth in entrepreneurship as a financial advisor, ran my own boutique financial advising firm for the better part of 16 years. And either when I was talking with peers or when I was doing sales training, I would often hear, oh, I didn't close the sale because the client was dumb. No, it has nothing to do with the client. It had everything to do with you. No matter how superior the product is, you didn't communicate the right way. You didn't align the client's needs and wants with what you had. You were focused on probably the product rather than creating a dialogue and some rapport, and then ultimately a relationship with that potential customer. I've seen far more sales closed and customers earned when the person who's engaging with them is simply talking with them the way they want to be talked with. So in a sales situation, your engineering type, your accounting type, that red, who's like, hey, just show me the numbers, and if it makes sense on the spreadsheet, I'm in. That's how you engage with the red. If you want to engage and sell to a blue, hey, your family, this is how it's going to benefit them. This is how it's going to, and then start talking about how these relationships permeate out, how it makes sense from a relationship level. It could be, hey, our customer service. You don't just buy the car from us. You've got a relationship with this dealership for service and for future sales. And for the yellow, man, you are going to look awesome in this car. Fuel economy be darned, you're going to look great behind the wheel. And that's how you engage with the yellow. A white, a little trickier because they do not like to be pushed. But I will tell you what, a white will be the most loyal customer once you get them. Because for as much work as you have to put into converting a white to be a customer, so does everybody else. So if you take it a little bit slower with a white personality, you in all likelihood have a customer for life.
I love it. And I'm still trying to figure out, I think I've got I see myself in different colors, but I'm sure I'm one, and I bet you know what that is. All right.
Christina, if I may, you bring up an excellent point. No person is one color exclusively. We have a literal color code that says you're mostly this, and then you got some this, and you're also flavored with this. So yes, there are some supporting colors in everybody's personality. And being able to identify those is equally important. However, once you got that core motivator identified, you're really going to be able to engage with others much more effectively.
Got it. So looking for that dominant color. That makes sense. Well, I'm glad I said something. All right, we have another question. This is about the open door policy. It says, does this mean the open door policy does not work at all?
So again, just to go back and yeah, we ripped through this webinar a little bit quicker than I had mapped out time-wise because of our late start. So if I didn't spend enough time in this area, I apologize. But the open door policy does work. But rather than just invite people in, leaders, you've got to get out and be on the literal or figurative floor right along with your employees, your team members, and your fellow leaders and supervisors. So it does work, but you've got to go out as much as you invite people in.
It goes two ways. I hear you. I hear what you're saying. All right, next question. It asks, we want to build a more positive workplace culture. How do we start?
Ooh, okay. You're here. We are here in this webinar together because you've got questions about organizational culture. And as we work through the 5 progressive elements of teamwork, you might have identified, okay, we're kind of missing one and we want to shift toward this culture. There's a couple of variables in play. And the first one is you have to decide what you want your culture to be. It's not enough to say, we want to turn left, but what is ultimately our destination? Once you've identified the type of culture you and ultimately your teammates and the entire organization has, because buy-in is going to be important. If you want an organizational shift, one person at the top saying, okay, we're doing this, probably going to be much more challenging to execute. If everyone has some buy-in, even if it's not what they wanted, there can still be support and buy-in when people at least feel that their voices have been heard, even if it's not the outcome that they specifically desired. Now, when we get to implementation, you don't, as the leader, so let's just think of this as a chain of command and a pyramid, and you're at the top. You don't have to reach every person in your organization, but you do have to reach what we call change agents. There are people in your organization, big or small, organization, not people, but there are people in your organization that either because of their role or title, or just because they're trusted amongst everyone else, they are looked up to. And those are the people that you are going to need to be on your side to execute and initiate this shift in culture, which is challenging. There are lots of ways to do it wrong, but there are also ways to do it right. And one of the main things you want is to create buy-in by getting those change agents to help you. It can be equally destructive if they're working against you. And so as a leader, again, this is that open door policy. See how all these things are intertwined? You go out and you gain buy-in from what you feel needs to be done. And if you're listening to your people, you're probably going to learn that not all of your ideas are the best. That took me a while to learn. So if you're listening to everyone else, you're going to affect the cultural change that they want and feel is needed. And then if you capture those change agents, that execution and implementation is going to be far easier.
Excellent. Thank you. And I just want to remind everybody, if you have any questions, you can raise your hand or you can unmute yourself. And I'm just going to give in case anybody wants to ask a question and can't find the reaction button since we're on Teams today, go ahead and unmute yourself now and ask your question. Let's give a few seconds. And if we don't hear anything, I've got, I think, one last question. All right, I think we're good. We're going to go ahead and go on to the last question then. All right, then it asks, are there any actionable templates or checklists that you can recommend that walk business owners through the process or steps of building a strong, positive organizational culture? Sorry, culture.
Okay, that question is littered with a bunch of sub questions. So this is layers and layers and layers deep. Yes, but this is not something I can answer in just a general webinar, because one, it's all right, a little counterintuitive. Template is kind of a one size fits all. And if you are looking at changing or even implementing really your first purposeful organizational culture, that is very specific. It is specific to what your organization does. It is specific to how you want people to be treated within, and really a makeup of the personality types that currently exist and that you want to build into. And that is the antithesis of template or boilerplate. So there's a lot of specifics that have to be uncovered and discovered so that I can properly answer that question. And that's going to be pretty specific. I will do that with you happily. This is one of my areas of absolute passion and purpose. So I will do that, but that's going to be a little bit more one-on-one. And I'm sorry for not being able to give more of a solid answer, but the question's just so broad. That's something we would have to tackle together.
And this is a great opportunity for those of you who want this information to reach out to Sean and schedule that appointment. Again, it's at no cost to you so that you can hopefully get your answer. All right. Well, I don't see any hands raised, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap the program. Again, everyone, thank you so much for your flexibility. What a crazy morning with Zoom being down around the world for a while. Thank you to the team for pivoting so quickly. Thank you, Sean, for being so flexible and doing such a great job. So yes, thank you, Sean, for your expertise and everything that you gave us today. All right. I want to thank again all our partners here on the East Side who are working hard to support our business community. Want to make sure you bookmark this site. Hopefully it's coming on right there. It is www.oneeastside.org/spark. There you will find key resources, information on our one-on-one advising, Sean's information, our weekly webinars, and grant opportunities as they become available. A big thank you to all of you for participating in our webinar today. So until we see you again, this concludes our program. Thank you.